So, now that we've decided our material, hello, I'm Ashley Lawrence. I'm a professional game developer at Full Flower Studio LLC. I am the lead environment designer on a project called Mermaid Life. I do this shit professionally. So I'm here to give you guys a quick crash course on how to do it too, if you want. We're going to call this one of my daily material sketches. I do them often. So, F2. So we're going to be creating a Lichen, 1, 21, or Lichen. So we're going to create a Lichen today. For those that are unaware and didn't pay attention momentarily, this is what we're creating. This nice little bit that goes on trees. This little thing here. The first thing we're going to do is create a generator for the space shape that creates the leaf shape. Then we're going to create something that actually moves them around. And we're going to have 3 or 4 different variations, and we're going to do some little extra working here and there. Get a nice little cute look to it, make it really stand out. So we do have color reference here. We are not going to use color reference necessarily, but we will be able to do that when I go to add it to a material to see if it actually works well. So first things first, we're going to bring a beat preview, item out 1, right click, pull that in. So for those of you that do not know, you can actually, if you have something with multiple outputs, base color, normal, etc., what you can do is you can take that output, right click it, and drag it into your scene to change what your outputs are rendering. You don't actually need your outputs to be rendering until you're ready. So for example, if I did a base material node here and defined nothing, I could also put that in here if I so desire, as you can see, just like that. But what I like to do, since this is going to be like material, so base color, normal, base, normal, roughness, and height. Turn on all these channels, turn off OpenGL, turn on to OpenGL. Pull the base color in with gradient map, normal, roughness, height, AO. And now we use this. So these will have no noticeable difference. I will actually go back to iRay real quick, and I'm just going to adjust. I realize I have a lot of subdivisions on my surface right now. There we go. So that's quick output setup right there. So we're doing, because I like to keep my node spaghetti clean because we're in the kitchen now, I'm going to label this outputs. So first things first, looking at this shape, the first thing I am seeing is a large kind of octagonal, or like a pentagonal maybe? Or just like a skewed quad with some cutouts is mostly what I'm seeing here. So we're going to do this the easy way. We're going to do a polygon. Let's do a polygon 1. Pull this up. Why is this at 256? $2K, please. Not 4K. There we go. So we're going to pull out this. We're going to make it a pentagon, and we're just going to scale it to 0.9. Pull in a shape. Paraboloid. Yeah, actually, we'll do fine. Transformation 2D. First, I want to warp this. By the way, again, at any point during this presentation, please feel free to unmute and ask questions. I am happy to answer as we go throughout the process. You are also welcome to post questions. I do have a secondary monitor that I am looking at, and I can see whatever questions are asked in chat. So first thing first, we want to... Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize. I was curious. What's the key you're hitting to get those icons to pop up?
Oh, this part?
Yes.
That is a space bar.
Okay, thank you.
So if you press space bar, you can search exactly everything you ever need instead of needing to go up here and like scroll through all of these. It's a lot easier. It is a lot easier to do that. Don't apologize, by the way. I welcome it. We're totally all right.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Got this going on. It's a nice little shape going on here. Only has enough warping going on for now. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn off tiling on this. Blend. We're gonna do a subtraction. And with this visible, with our pentagon visible, we're gonna slowly adjust our node here, get what we want out of it. So one other thing I'm gonna do before I continue this process is I'm going to warp base here. The intent to warp this is it gives us a bit more edge flow, so that when we actually subtract it, you can see it doesn't look just completely flat, in case someone is wondering why we're warping this. Blend again, duplicate the transformation, pull this in over here, and do another subtraction. Move this one around. I want this long edge here. So now you can see we're starting to get that rough shape going on. I'm particularly looking at this one right here, simply because it's got the nicest flow to it. We can see it's got this large cutout at the top, and it's got a little cutout on each side. So we're gonna just do this again, and we're just gonna keep repeating this step a couple more times until we are happy with our results. I'm gonna do, I think, 4 total. Because 4 feels like a good number for this. And I there. As you can see, that kind of looks similar to what we want. We still got some hard edges going. So, one sec. Pull this in. So now I'm going to do just another quick little warp on this. You know what? We're going to do a multi-directional. Slope blur could work if we had more shape going on, but because of the way slope blur works, it kind of just, it doesn't look quite right. It's a bit more, it's a bit sharper than I'd like it to be. So we're going to do a multi-directional warp grayscale. Pull this as the input. Pull that at a 45 degree. Reduce this down to 6. Pane. Now that starts giving us this nice look here, and as we go back over here, I can see that I'm not putting enough focus on this side here. So I'm going to move this one to there, and I'm going to actually add one more step to this. Spaghetti clean, please. One more step in here. Just to get rid of that hard edge on this. something kind of like that. We can see it's kind of doing what I'm wanting at this point. It's starting to look like a bit of a piece of like piece. Not fully. Slowly adjust this a bit further. And a bit more like that, I think. Works pretty well. Going to increase our intensity quite a bit. Probably like 23, like that or so. It's a nice result. Now comes the fun part. And we have our base. Pull those over. For those who don't know, alt-clicking will add a little node pin, so you can move your graph around. It is an incredibly helpful tool. So now we have the base shape done. Now we're going to go to a bevel, pull that inward like this, and we're going to smooth the shit out of it. Now we can adjust just how much this goes in. Then we're going to take a blend here. We're going to subtract that down. Now, you can't really see it very well, but it gives us this nice... kind of see it better. So if we reduce it, you can see it's really intense, but if we slowly increase that smoothing, it gets a nice, even tell going on here. Even tell. Even shell, that's the word. You can see it's got this nice little bit of height variance. And you can easily see that actually in this material. It's got those nice hard edges with that slight indent going right in there. But nice, it creates this little bit of just pop, which is very, very nice. And we can see it's got little ridges here and there that we're gonna add in view. So now we have first base, add a frame, call this the shell curl. I could call it that, but that's not fun. Concave geometry would only apply if it was geometric. It is a shape in real life, so I don't call it geometry. Shell. I don't care about terminology. It's gotten me far enough. So we have our little shell curl going on now. And it's nice and fun to look at. So from here, I think our best choice is gonna be... you know what? I'm gonna add cells in. We're gonna add cells. That's what's going on here. Boom. Another blend. Do a cells. This is a good start. This kind of gives us a human cells look, but that is not the cells we want. We actually probably want cells 3. Cells 2 is the one I'm thinking of, maybe? Cells 3 is. But as you can see, it adds this nice amount of geo here. Little lines. Little fellas. We're gonna do a little bevel. Slightly deep. No, we're not, apparently. My solution. Edge to there we go. Okay. Over. Going to do a transformation. That's text. Or just have that twice. Quick. And bevel. Here. What's the purpose of this bevel? It is to give light smoothing the whole thing. Bit intense. Where's this? As you can see, that gives us this nice little phrase section where it doesn't look quite as intense as it would normally. Without, as we increase that blurring, slowly looks a bit more planty. We could add veins onto it, but I really don't feel like veins are necessary. This is already a bit much cells in my usual experience, because this won't be seen. To be entirely honest, this isn't going to be seen. This is just for fun. I'm gonna add a frame real quick. Call that cells. Cool. So now we're gonna create an input node. Input grayscale. We're gonna identify this as height and make the label capital height. Input height to adjust. Apply Lichen. Boom, done. Input height to apply Lichen. Simple as that. Then we're going to throw a tile sampler in here. And this is going to go through our pattern input 1. We're going to make sure our pattern input is set to pattern input. Look at that. So now what we can really do, if we wanted to have some fun, is create additional warps on this same shape. And that is exactly what we're going to freaking do. So first things first, we're going to move all this, move it over. Put a warp. Throw a purlin in here. We're gonna do a directional warp. Directional warp. Fun. Then we're gonna do a purlin. Do a 8. 45 degrees. We'll just pump that up to 6. Ah, jeez. I've made a mistake. Far enough so that it doesn't start peeking out through the other one. Cool, there we go. That's one. Not visually different, but it's different enough. I'm gonna throw another regular warp here. Ununiform directional. It's not what I want. No, it's not what I want. Warp. Then 8. And then as we just play around until we get a shape. Maybe twist. What is it? Is it morph? So, trying to remember how to do certain things as I am doing this. I'm very tired. I went to a party last night, not gonna lie. So I'm a little out of it completely, but good. So, now that we've got a couple of just slightly different shapes, what I want to do now is take these through the tile sampler. So we're just do a little frame here. We can also do after the tile sampler, we can add additional going on. So now we're going to increase the pattern input to 3. Going to pull those in here. So while they don't look very visually different, they will be. We're going to come over here and we're going to reduce the subtraction on that shell, on that concavity. we're gonna reduce the subtraction here, the multiplication, a little bit on cells, so it's a very slight effect we want. We're just going to put all of these down to our input height. So we're at 16 by 16, which honestly, probably not enough. We're going to bump this up to 48 by 48. Increase that scale. About there. That's fine. Add some symmetry random and rotation random going on. We're going to take an offset here of 0.05. We're going to work with that. So I'm going to keep this height input here, but for now, I actually need to take something in as a base for my height to actually tell what I am working with. I'm going to take that cliff I showed off earlier, and we're going to use the height of this cliff material to determine how this is going to work. First things first, we're going to put a little color random, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of color random. As we can see, this is already starting to look kind of like what we want. First things first, we want to put an inverse on that mass map threshold. Wait, no, we want the Lichen to apply on the outside, not on the inside. That's fine. So I'm just gonna increase my mass map threshold, probably to point about 5.4. That's following that height pretty effective. This is gonna be my default. What we're gonna do is we're gonna expose this as a new graph input, and we're gonna put this as group Lichen tiles. I guess it could just be Lichen, but we'll just put it under masking. We don't need to put a description on here unless you're handing this to other people who need to understand what this is for. But I'm gonna do this because I want to, so it'll be level height mask. Simple as that. And we're gonna put a mask map input. We're gonna put an invert here, turn it to false, and we're gonna expose this as well. Throw this under masking, height mask invert, invert height mask. So the whole point here is so that if we invert the height mask and we adjust our mask map threshold, we are adjusting how far the high end is cut off versus how far the low end is. So, for example, on standard, you are cutting off the lower end and saying it only grows on the higher end. So the top 50% it will grow on. But if we remove the lower end, then if we invert that, then it's the exact opposite. So it doesn't grow on higher points. I am actually going to increase our amount, double it. Use the scale. Bit of a rotation random as well. We're also going to do another mask section after this, which will be, we're just going to do, I'll figure that out in a minute. Right now, we are still exposing. But default, we are not inverting our mask on this one just because I like it's necessary since we are using this cliff shape. I'm going to do a material blend. On there. Turn off diffuse, turn on specular and glossiness, turn on ambient occlusion. We're going to press 3, so that'll turn us into material mode here. We can very quickly, easily adjust this. See material 1, and now we have our material. And we're going to use this as our output here. But what we're going to do is click this and throw a histogram select on it, maximize our contrast, and maximize our range. And then we are going to put all this in, and you can see now we've got our base height under here with our custom Lichen on top. Pretty simple. That's not necessary right now. This is just for visualization purposes, so we actually can see what's happening. Any questions so far or anything like that? Anybody have anything they want to comment on? I will assume no, and we're gonna keep moving. So now that we've got our very rough base here, we can start increasing our mask ramp to remove some of that very harsh edge from the mask map. As you can see, it's got a very harsh edge based on the height position here. We're just going to reduce that a little bit by adding a mask. We're going to put this in masking, mask random, pretty simple stuff, and we're going to make that so it's an output. The reason we are doing that is so that when we are actually using this as a generator, we are not stuck with the parameters I made the first time, but we are making it modular. And that is definitely a good. I'm also going to throw color parameterization based on scale, so it gets a little bit darker as it gets. Throw in a bit more scale random. We're just going to expose scales real quick. They're always good to expose. Size random, that doesn't need. Like that. So now you can see we've got this nice effect going on, this nice difference. Shape splatter be better here. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think a shape splatter might be better. Yes, this is spaghetti. We're starting to get something better here with the shape splatter over a tile sampler. We're going to put another invert here because that is effectively what we are wanting. Grass input for that. Thankfully, it's really easy to work with this stuff, and we barely have to do anything. Take that. I'm going to that turns our shape splatter here, which creates this nice detail for us to actually work with. This is a flood fill, so it allows us to work with this for what is the word? Masking and for flood fill stuff. So for example, if I did flood fill to random grayscale, I could do this to add a little bit of height variation, a little bit of color variation. We'll get to that stuff later. Now we have nice sky going on here. But rotation random full really matter too much. Down. So rotation pattern rotation random is 90 degrees, etc. From it doesn't really do a lot, but it adds just a little bit extra variation, which in PBR materials is your biggest thing. Small variation. I'm gonna actually hire more of them. I want them to be grouped together. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go down to position right here. Turn off position random entirely. I'm gonna put a vector map multiplier of like 10. We can see it's clumping up a lot more than it was before. And if I reduce that vector map multiplier, it reduces there. Slowly pushes it towards where it needs to go. You can see it groups up on higher points and kind of doesn't really do much on, which is better than we want. Exactly what we want. We want to turn our smooth conformed background on. So you can see that effectively right here, what that is doing. It is pre-blurring the material underneath where you are actually putting your new shape. So what this does is it makes it so that your shape actually stands out and doesn't just look like additional pieces are being added to what is existing. But actually looks like it's a new section on top of it. Play with this. High scale random. I expose a lot of things as I am doing this. Not obvious. The reason I do that is because the more you expose, the more control you have over your generator later, and that gives you a lot of control. So you can see kind of where our shape is right now, based on everything. And we're getting this nice, very even look so far. Which, honestly, I kind of like it. It's just a bit not as clumped together as I want. That's kind of what I'm looking, particularly within the position. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a vector mask. So effectively, the whole purpose of that is so that as you can select a specific section of the height scale based on your histogram, and if we our vector map multiplier, it should clump up towards those edges, particularly that opposite away from those edges. With a negative. Not help it. We invert that. Now we have those areas selected and should do what I am wanting. Yeah, we're getting something. What I probably should do is generate clumps first and then do this, but that's fine. So we're just gonna create clumps real quick. But sometimes what you're doing doesn't work. So what you do is you throw it out, which is totally acceptable. I have made a mistake, but this is what I want. I just didn't make the clumps first. So that is my problem. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a tile sampler up here real quick. We're going to generate out a couple of clumps, and then we're going to generate those over. Now we're working with a nice little shader. Going to increase the scale there. We're going to keep it at 10 by 10. 100 is more. Rotation and symmetry randoms on. Come down here, color random up. Going to rotation random, rotation map multiplier, vector map multiplier. We're going to scale this down back to here. If you look at the vector map, you can see it pushes everything away from where we are. This is where we want to do negative. Pull everything closer in towards that central post. And then we're going to just turn our mass map threshold up just a little bit. Like that. As we adjust our vector map, you can see it's slowly pulling things. Clean little singular point. What we're going to do here is a scale. We're going to go up to the scale map. That. Now, as it gets further away from center, it gets a bit colored out. Turn off our color random. We are just going to let our color parameterization determine our coloring. Reduce the intensity of that normal by a lot. Slowly turn that mass map up until we get something like that. Now we're going to take that exact same thing, blend node, push it up through here, and we're going to take the top 0.5. I want bottom 0.5, I think. That creates this nice halfway inverted one. I want to pull all of this stuff over here. An invert, normal, bump that up to 10. So now that should create a slightly different look. Different batch. Please feel free to unmute and talk at any time. Not against it. There. Now we got both of these, and what we can do, a little quick blend. Max Lichen. Couple random seed differences on this. Kind of nice. Our mask map. There we go. Now we got a nice clump going on. Now if I go back up here, go to our pattern input, set it to 1. Pull up here, this pattern, better, and then we drop this down to 64 by 64. Increase that scale up to like times or something. Five. So we're gonna go even lower. This. So now we have clumps of lichen. That is what I wanted to do in the first place. Look at this. Get these nice little clumps all around that actually add height detail, and we will be able to work with. I apologize that that took so long though. I had to figure out how to do it again. It's been a while since I've done lichens. Now what we can do with this, now that we know it's working mostly how I intend, what I am going to do is I'm going to pull all that over to our height input. Take this histogram, select, max out the range, max out that contrast, create an output node. This output will be labeled as mask. Simple as that. So now we have our mask output. That is done. We're going to output this node directly, which is what we use to create our output here. This is going to be our shape. We can do additional work with this once we are done. We don't really need this part, which creates the opposite mask. I have found I've never actually used this in my experience, so it's just not something I'm going to use. And then we're going to create an output for the height and simply label it height. Feet. Now if we go down here to the lichen, we can see our outputs here, and we can reorder these. So I want height first, mask, and then the shape flood. That creates our whole input, the whole thing, the whole shebang. Now we can start adding stuff like scale random, map multiplier, mask from background slope. We can start re-adding all of the stuff we have already done prior into it as necessary. Now we have shape splatter. Very complex looking node. Add this. These. add a frame real quick. Clump generation, which is this nice little clump, and then we have little clumps, and we are golden. Now a generator that will do things, certainly. So if you go back to that cliff real quick, I already have some Lichen in here, but what we can do is we take that Lichen, pull that in as an input node, and as you can see, pull this in here for height. Second. Isn't even 4K, why is I know. I need to stop this real quick. I have that height coming in higher, don't I? Something. I guess Substance is just doing Substance things where it doesn't want to render, which is okay. Alright, well, we've created our own little Lichen thing. Our own little Lichen texture. And my Substance does not want to render anymore, which is okay, because I am also recording. So that happens. So, thank you all for observing as I do this. My Substance Designer is now taking up 20 gigabytes of memory. 4 gigs. We're just gonna kill it real quick. We can actually use it. Any questions about anything I just did? Because I know I have some for myself, and I don't know how to answer them. But you're welcome to ask any questions you want. I didn't even.
I have some questions, but mine's more of like a learning curve, so that's why I'm not asking any.
No, please do ask. I am open to discussing all of them.
I'm vaguely familiar with nodes in Blender, and from what I gathered, basically you're taking all of these like different little maps, and that's how you create your shapes with these nodes, right? And okay, I'm just trying to grasp
that
it all.
is.
It's a lot.
It is definitely a lot, especially early on. I have been using Substance Designer for about 2 years now, 2.5 years, and I've been using it professionally for the last 8 months. But I've really gotten a grasp of it very, very quickly. The biggest lesson that I've taken away from this lecture is that don't be afraid of failure. I fucked up several times. I messed up several times throughout this whole thing, and it was just not working how I wanted it to, so I threw it out. Don't be afraid of throwing out work because if it doesn't fit your intent. So that's kind of the biggest takeaway I've had recently. Design with intent, and you'll create something awesome.
Awesome, good stuff.
But slime mold next. I'm not doing another material today, but if there's no other questions, that'll be all. It was great talking to y'all. Hopefully you learned something new during this experience. Like, mistakes are okay. This is definitely scaling something up here. Oh lord, I found it. Because it is immediately taking up 30 gigs memory, which is no. I might not be at the next Atom. I got so much stuff to do, but I have less stuff to do now. I am just improving my ZBrush skills and improving my Thank you all for watching.